India is a growing economic power and important geopolitical player. And as we presented with our Indo-Pacific strategy just last year, we're very serious about building closer ties with India.
12 days since making those wild allegations of a potential link of Indian agents' involvement in Hardeep Singh Nijjar's killing, now Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says this, climbing down from the earlier position and also throwing a softer stand for India-Canada relationship. Who are Canada's main allies? Australia, United Kingdom, New Zealand and the United States of America. But on this issue, all these Western nations are very cautious on blatantly supporting Canada's wild allegations against India. They have given out statements saying that this expresses concern. They have asked India to cooperate with the investigation, fair statements, but nothing more. Not words like Canada, our friend is absolutely correct, and India will have to face action if all this is true. Because amid all of this, there is an if. Evidence is still awaited. I'm sure Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau must have tried his best to rope in the Five Eye allies. Was he disappointed with the muted response? We will never know. But what we do know is the United Kingdom is looking forward for a free trade deal with India, which will be possibly a big political victory. USA is getting ready for the 2+2 meeting with India pretty soon in areas of space, clean energy and defense. Recently, White House National Security spokesman John Kirby said USA's relationship with India will always remain the same and that the two countries are important partners. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar recently also met US Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Washington, discussing various issues including the new IMEC corridor and India's G20 presidency. So what is the reason of a muted response from the West against India? There is a reason here on why Western nations have not given out the kind of response that Canada would have expected and the response that has in fact come out from the Western nations. And the reason is, India has emerged as a potential global leader in the global economy due to country's political stability and workforce. After a rapid growth of 7.2% in the fiscal year of 22-23, India continues a streak with fast expansion in the next year too. India's nominal GDPs are forecast to rise from $3.5 trillion in 2022 to approximately $7.3 trillion by 2030. Possibly it may even take over Germany and Japan's economy by 2030. India is presently a growing military and a diplomatic power. It has the civilizational strength of centuries and has a bright future. But also amid all of this, remember, it's our neighbor China, whose aggression against India is well known and India constantly trying to confront it. But some experts say the priority of the allies also is closer ties with India could mean it could take on China too. So the Western nations clearly want to bolster the ties with India and possibly use Delhi as a counterweight to Beijing's rising power and its assertiveness by India. India is important in Western calculations for balancing China and Canada is not. Stephanie Carvin, a professor of international relations at Ottawa's Carleton University, said in a news report recently. It was heartening to see India getting solid support from nations around us in the subcontinent. These are nations that have also suffered from terrorism and extremism. Sri Lanka and Bangladesh specifically have come forward in India's support. Remember, India has supported these neighbor nations in difficult times. Listen in now to Bangladesh's foreign minister on Canada supporting assassins, terrorists.
Canada is becoming a hub of all the murderers, of all the across the nation. I know that if anybody is a murderer, they try to take shelter in Canada under varieties of false pretexts. And in the process, Canada is becoming a hub of murderers. That should not, Canada is a lovely country. It's a great country, but this particular law is affecting Canadian reputation. So Canada should not allow killers, provide them a safe home in Canada.
He reminds the world about Lieutenant Colonel Noor Chaudhry, the Bangladesh army officer gone rogue, responsible for the assassination of father of Bangladesh and sitting president Sheikh Mujibur Rahman in 1975. And he has been living a protected, sheltered life in Canada since 1996. All the extradition requests by Bangladesh have been denied to them. The question remains why they shelter to him.
We have been requesting Canadian government to send back that self-confessed killer of Bangabandhu.
Now listen in to Foreign Minister of Sri Lanka on Canada giving shelter to extremists too.
Some of the terrorists have found safe haven in Canada. Canadian Prime Minister has this way of just coming out with some outrageous allegations without any supporting proof. The same thing they did for Sri Lanka. Prime Minister Trudeau comes out with outrageous, unsubstantiated allegations.
Outgoing Sri Lankan High Commissioner to India, Melinda Margoda, openly stated, and I quote it here, "I think India's response has been inequitable and also firm and direct. And I think as far as we are concerned, we support India on that." Let me give you some more history about Canada. A 32-year-old Algerian-born terrorist was able to enter into Canada in 1994 with a false passport. He claimed refugee status, committed numerous crimes, and this came to be known as the Ahmad Resams case. Look up. This led to a lot of outrage in Canada in 2001. In an interview, Bill Bauer, former member of the Canadian Immigration and Refugee Board, said in this interview in PBS, "Many countries look upon Canada as a welcoming country for terrorists and war criminals. This is not a deliberate policy, but result of a series of shortcomings in the system that enables individuals to slip across the border through any port of entry. They establish a case, they claim refugee status, and meanwhile, they continue to get welfare." He also mentions that no major changes in legislations are expected, and there is also an extreme backlog of the cases that are difficult to track in depth and are misused. Now let's dig deeper. Did the son of a designated terrorist, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, inadvertently reveal that the Canadian intelligence authorities and police were regularly in touch with the leader of the local Gurdwara in Surrey, who was also a plumber? Is that really that common in Canada? As the son Balraj claims to the Canadian media that his father regularly met officials from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. They'd already informed him about the threat to his life. Why was the Canadian police tipping off Nijjar if he was only a plumber? And that another country's agents allegedly are after him. And if they knew about the Indian agents, pretty sure they knew about Nijjar's background too. Then why do they refer to Nijjar only as a Canadian citizen?
For us, it has certainly been a country where organized crime from India mixed with trafficking in people, mixed with secessionism, violence, terrorism. It's a very toxic combination of issues and people who have found operating space there.
For years, Canadian authorities rejected Nijjar's citizenship. And then strangely somehow, for some reason, he was granted that citizenship of Canada. Like many other criminals, gangsters from across the world and from India too, who have fled and evaded the law, continue to sadly operate from Canada and cause mayhem here in India. Something to ponder upon. Thank you for watching.
For more informative videos like this, keep watching India Today Newsmo.